the light is wrong. That's the first thing. Not the language, not the cold, but the light falling gray and flat through a window that isn't yours, across a floor that isn't yours, in a country whose name still comes out crooked in your own mouth. You stand there with one bag. Everything you own leans against your leg in a zippered nylon shell, and it weighs almost nothing, and somehow that lightness presses down harder than a full trunk ever could. Outside, the signs slide past in a script your eyes can't grip. Letters that won't hold still. Shapes that mean something to everyone but you. The money stays in your inside pocket folded because a pocket against your chest feels safer than one that doesn't. You know the number without counting, $300. You counted it on the plane, then again in the corridor under the fluorescent hum, and it refused to grow either time, 300. It sat in your palm looking smaller than it ever did back home, where you knew what bread cost, what a bus cost, what a month cost. Here you know none of those prices. Here the 300 is a stranger too, the same as you. And there is a clock. Not one on any wall. You feel it the way you feel weather coming in your knees. Rent somewhere ahead has a date fixed to it. The papers you don't have yet run out before you even hold them. The room you're standing in is borrowed, and borrowed things come with a give-back day. You don't know which day. That's the part that sits under your ribs and won't lie flat. Not that time is short, but that you can't yet read how short. The face of the clock is written in the same alphabet as the signs, the one your eyes keep slipping off of. You do the arithmetic anyway because arithmetic is the one language you brought fluent. A room, shared, a mattress in a corner, the cheapest thing a person can rent and still call it indoors, eats most of the 300 in a single handshake. Then food. Then the small, unkillable costs no one warns you about. A transit card, a phone number, a passport photo for a form you can't read. You lay the numbers end to end and watch the 300 come apart in your hands before you've spent a cent. Not a cushion. You understand that fast, standing in the wrong light. $300 is a match, not a savings account. It buys you a little flame and a little time, and if you don't build something to feed the fire before the match burns down to your fingers, there's nothing after it but dark. Back home, someone would have known you. A cousin, a family name, a face behind a counter who watched you grow up. You never once thought of that as money. Now its absence is the loudest thing in the room. You have no history here, not a bad one, none at all. And to every office and landlord and future boss, you are a blank page. A blank page can't rent, can't borrow, can't be vouched for. Back home, your name meant a little something. Here, it's just a sound people ask you to spell twice. You set the bag down properly, sit on the edge of the borrowed mattress, and let yourself feel, for one honest minute, exactly how small this start is. A folded 300, a tired body, a clock you can't read. You didn't bring money. You brought a start, and a start weighs nothing and everything at the same time. Then you take the money out again, unfold it flat on your knee, and make yourself look at it a different way. Not as what's left, as what's first. The 300 isn't the story. The 300 is the deadline, and out past the edge of this gray light, that deadline already wears a date, counting itself down in a language you haven't learned to read. The ground comes first. Before you understand a single thing about this place, your body needs one true surface to stand on, and it turns out the first true thing is work. Not the idea of work, the actual grip of it, the first hours that end with something in your hand that wasn't there at dawn. It doesn't come through the front door, you learn that quickly. You can walk into a building with a paper sign taped to the glass, hand across a form filled in with letters you copied like a child drawing shapes, and the form goes onto a pile, and the pile is where blank pages go to wait forever. Nothing moves through the front for a man with no history. What moves is a name passed sideways, a cousin of a cousin, a face from back home living 2 neighborhoods over, someone who heard a new man landed and needed hours. That's how the first job finds you, not through a system, through a person. His name you'll keep the rest of your life, the one who arrived years ahead of you. He doesn't rescue you. He isn't that kind of man, and you aren't the kind who'd let him. He just shows you a move the way someone who's already crossed a dark room shows you where the low step is. He came the same way you did, folded bills against his chest, a clock he couldn't read. Now he tells you which foreman pays on the day and which one forgets, which site shakes your hand and which one shorts your hours when the week ends. He says it plainly over coffee that costs more than you'd like, and he doesn't dress it up as heroism. Everybody starts here, he says. The trick is to not still be here in 5 years. Proof, not a savior. You watch how he carries himself, settled, unhurried, planted in a way you can't picture for yourself yet, and you file it away as a thing a person can actually reach. The first lawful day of work ends and you're paid, and the number is not large. Let's not pretend it's large, but set it against the 300 for a second. The 300 that only ever shrank, that fell apart the moment you counted it. This is a number that moved the other way. It's small, but it points uphill, and after a start that only ever pointed down, uphill is the entire world. You fold it away and feel the floor under you shift from falling to standing. That's the whole feeling, not comfort, footing, and then you meet the other one, the warning. A man who arrived around the same time as your guide and is still standing exactly where he landed, turning in place. He did it alone. Wouldn't ask, wouldn't lean, made a hard point of it. I don't owe anybody. I don't answer to anybody. You'd admire it if it were working. It isn't. He takes the jobs that hire strangers off the curb because those are the only doors that open for a man with no name behind him, and those doors pay the least, cost the most, and lead nowhere. He's been starting over for 2 years and never once cleared the start. Something in you goes cold watching him because you know that pride. It's yours. It's the voice at the back of your own skull saying, do it yourself, don't be a burden, don't owe a soul. Here's what that voice hides from you, and it takes watching him to see it. Going alone isn't the proud version of starting over, it's the expensive one. Every door your guide opens with a single sentence, the alone man is trying to open with his shoulder over and over for years. The knowledge of who pays fare, the trust that carries you through a doorway before your paperwork can, the tip about the room renting for less than the sign says, none of it is written down anywhere. It lives inside people. A community isn't a soft comfort you allow yourself once you can afford it. It's the first real asset you own here, the only one that didn't cost a piece of the 300, and the man who refuses to touch it is the poorest man in the room. Alone is the most expensive way to start over, so you say yes. You let the name pass to you, pass your thanks back, take the coffee and the advice in the sideways door, and for the first time since the wrong gray light, you feel like you're standing inside something instead of pressed with both hands against the glass of it. And yet, everything you've built so far is the part a person can see. The job, the cash in the pocket, the coffee, the handshake. Underneath all of it, invisible and completely absent, sits the part that actually holds a life upright. No bank calls you a customer, no lender knows your name exists. The papers that turn cash in hand into an actual defensible foothold aren't in your possession. You have the ground now? You still don't have the thing underneath the ground, and until you do, everything above it is standing on nothing. Nobody claps for this part. Understand that going in. The work ahead leaves no mark anyone can admire, makes no story worth telling at a dinner table, and feels most days like standing in lines to be handed small pieces of paper. But this is the part that holds. Everything before it was you surviving. This is you starting to build, and building from the outside looks like nothing happening at all. It starts with a bank. Sounds simple, it isn't when you have no history behind you. You walk in with your cash wages and learn the door doesn't just swing wide because you got money to hand over. You need papers proving you're allowed to be here, papers proving where you sleep, a number certifying the system agrees you exist. Each paper demands another paper, each line feeds you into a different line. Your guide walks you through the order of it because there is an order, and the alone man never learned it. He's still cash only, everything in bills, and this is exactly where you finally see what that quietly costs him, because you were him for a few weeks. You cashed your pay at the storefront with the bright sign and the plexiglass window, the place that takes your money to hand you your own money. You watched them keep a slice each time and told yourself the slice was small, so do the arithmetic with me the way you finally did it standing in that line. The average fee to cash a paycheck runs about 2.34%. That's the real national figure, and plenty of places charge more, up toward 5 or 6. On a single week's check, it's a few dollars feels like nothing. But you don't cash one check. You cash every check every week all year 52 times. Stack the fees, add the money orders you buy because you can't write one, and the studies land in one place. A person living entirely cash only bleeds somewhere between $400 and $600 a year straight into that window. Money that buys nothing, that doesn't even leave a record you earned it. Call it $500, give or take. You freeze on that number right there in the line because $500 isn't abstract to you. It's more than the whole country you arrived with. Every single year, cash only, you'd hand a window a sum larger than your entire starting stake for the privilege of touching wages that were already yours. The alone man is 2 years into that. He's paid for 2 extra arrivals and has nothing to show for either. So the bank account was never really about paperwork. It was about sealing a leak you'd been standing in without looking down. The first month your wages land somewhere that doesn't skim them, you feel it. Not as wealth, but as a cut that finally stopped bleeding. Then comes the strange one, the invisible one. Credit history, a thing you never thought about back home, where trust lived in faces and handshakes, and which here lives in a file you can't see, kept by companies you've never met, that quietly decide whether you get a room, a phone plan, a car, a life. And your file isn't bad, your file is empty, which turns out to be its own locked door. You can't rent the better apartment because you've no record of paying. You can't build a record of paying because nobody will let you pay for anything. It's a circle and a cruel one, and it's precisely where the predatory hand reaches in for you. The storefront flashing no credit, no problem. The loan that welcomes the exact man everyone else waved off. You almost take it. Be honest, you're exhausted. The clock is still ticking, and here's a door that opens the instant you lean on it. But you ask your guide first, and he sets the coffee down and does the arithmetic you were too tired to do. A payday loan, he says, isn't priced like a loan, it's priced like a trap. A typical one runs a few $100s for a couple of weeks, and when you annualize the fee the way the law makes them print it, the rate lands in the hundreds of percent. Not 15, not 30, 300, sometimes 600% a year. He watches that number hit you. That door opens easy, he says, because it's a hole. That's his opinion, and now it's yours. The people who target the freshly arrived, the friendly-sounding fee, the loan built to roll over and swallow you, those aren't services. They're toll booths set up on the tired, and you're allowed to simply not drive that road. The real way is slow and boring, and it works. A small, honest starter line, the kind the bank finally offers because you're now a customer with a record. You use a little, you pay it in full, on the day, every time, on purpose. Nothing dramatic happens, and that's the entire point. Somewhere in a file you'll never lay eyes on, a single thread begins, the first true thread, spun from absolute zero, that says this one keeps his word with money. It holds almost no weight yet, but it's the first brick of a wall that will one day carry a whole house, and you are laying it by hand in a language you're still sounding out letter by letter. And that's when the thing turns over in you. No drama, no music, just a slow rotation in a bank lobby or a phone shop queue. Back home, you believed the way everyone believed that a financial life was something you were handed or weren't. Your family had standing or it didn't. Your name opened doors or it stayed shut. You arrived here certain you'd been handed nothing, and you grieved it like a stolen birthright. But standing in these lines, sealing the leak, spinning the first thread, you catch the belief being wrong at the root. Nobody is handed this. It only looks inherited from the outside because the building always happens where no one's watching, in queues, in paid-off balances, in dull-kept promises. The people back home with standing simply had grandfathers who once stood in lines exactly like these. A financial life isn't inherited, it's built, one invisible brick at a time. The thought doesn't land clean, it fights you. Part of you still wants it to have been unfair, still wants to have been robbed because robbed is easier to carry than responsible. If it was stolen, you only have to grieve it. If it was never given to anyone, you have to go build it. Accepting the new belief cost you the old complaint, and the complaint was warm. But you take the trade anyway because the alone man kept his complaint and stayed rooted to the spot he landed on, while your guide swapped his for a wall of invisible bricks and now sleeps behind a door that's his. One quiet question before you move on. What would you rebuild first if you landed tomorrow with $300 and an alphabet you couldn't read? The leak or the thread? Sit with it a second because the order matters more than it looks. You lay another brick, then another, none of them show. And then one afternoon, you lean your full weight against the little you've stacked. You put your account and your one thin thread of history in front of a real landlord, a better room, and the scaffolding you were sure was too flimsy to hold anything does the one thing it's never done before. It holds. The bricks start talking to each other. That's the part no one tells you about invisible work. You set them one at a time, alone, in lines, each one convinced it's too small to matter, and then one morning, you notice they've begun leaning on one another, holding up something larger than the sum of them. The word for what they've built has an old-fashioned weight to it, a word you'd have laughed at while counting $300 on a plane. Reputation. It turns out to be the most valuable thing you own, and it turns out you were making it this whole time without once watching your hands. Here's how you notice. The foreman who counted your hours straight asks whether you know anyone reliable. Because a bigger job came in and he needs hands he can trust, he asks you. Half a year ago, you were the man with no name, the blank page, and now you're the one being asked to vouch because you showed up when you said you would, did the work you promised, took the fair pay without gloating, and the short pay without swallowing it in silence. None of it was strategy. You were only trying to keep your footing. But every kept word was going somewhere, filing itself in people's heads the same way a paid-off balance files itself in the system you can't see, and now, without warning, it's paying out. You bring your guide's cousin. The circle widens by one. The next job is easier to land than the last, and the one after that easier still. That's the shape of it, and it's the same shape as the credit thread, which is why it clicks so hard when you finally see it whole, compounding. Back home, you only ever heard the word attached to money you didn't have, interest accruing to accounts that were always someone else's. Here you're living the other kind, the compounding of a name. The first chance cost you everything, weeks of asking, a guide, a sideways door, a humility that scrapes skin. The second cost less, the third came looking for you. Each kept promise makes the next one cheaper to believe until trust that used to take months to earn arrives in the space of a single phone call. It's the exact engine the comfortable run on, the one you were sure stayed locked to people born inside it, and you're running it now from zero, not with capital, with your word. Your name kept clean became the only collateral you ever needed. And weigh it once against what it cost, because that's the price no receipt prints. You turned down the fast door every single time it swung open, and it swung open often because they can smell exhaustion. You paid balances in full on weeks when a smaller payment would have left cash in your pocket for something you wanted. You said no to the shortcut so many times that no became a reflex, and every no in the moment felt like a small loss. Total them now. Each shortcut you refused was a brick you chose not to crack. The wall stands because of the no's. The fast door would have cost you the one thing you can't buy back at any price, a clean file, a clean name, and the man who takes it never learns that until the day he finally needs the wall to hold and finds he traded it for one easy week, a long time ago. Which returns you to him, the alone man? You still cross paths and it brings no satisfaction, only the opposite because he's a decent man, still standing precisely where he landed, and now you can name why with a sharpness that would have been cruelty to own a year ago. He never let a reputation form because a reputation needs witnesses, and he refused on principle to be seen owing or being owed. He took the stranger jobs where no face gets remembered, so no one's head ever kept a file on him, so every chance cost him full price, every time, forever. No compounding, no widening circle, no lift. He guarded his independence so fiercely, he never let it grow into anything that could carry his weight. 2 years of first steps. The pride you almost kept, don't owe, don't answer to anyone, you understand it now for what it was in him. Not strength, a lock he set on his own door and mistook for privacy. Your guide, meanwhile, drops one of his flat little lines that lands heavier than he means it to. You start to thank him for the first job, the coffee, the order of the lines, all of it, and he waves it off before you finish. You'll do it for the next one, he says. That's the whole deal. That's the only reason any of us are standing here, and it opens up in front of you. The thing is a chain. He was vouched for once too. The trust you've been living inside was laid down by people you'll never meet and gets paid forward to people who'll never learn your name. And this is the standing you were certain you had to be born into. It isn't inherited at all. It's lent, kept, and passed down the line by hand. You look up from the arithmetic and can't quite trust what's in front of you because it isn't survival anymore. Survival was the plexiglass window and the folded bills and the clock you couldn't read. This has a shape that keeps going past this month, past this year, a floor beneath it that you poured yourself, brick by invisible brick. You can see it out ahead of you, faint but solid, a thing you never once let yourself picture in that wrong gray light on the first day. Not a longer stay, roots, the key turns. That's the whole of it in the end, a key turning a lock, a sound you've heard 10,000 times across your life and never once stopped to hear. You hear it now, it's your door. Not a borrowed room with a give-back day, not a mattress in the corner of someone else's kindness, not a place you're permitted to occupy until a clock you couldn't read runs out. Your door, your key, your name on the page that says so, you signed the lease yourself. Read it too, slowly, the way you still read most things here, but you read it, in the alphabet that slid off your eyes on the first day like water off glass. The letters hold still now. Somewhere across these months, they stopped being drawings and became words, and you never caught the day it happened, the same way you never caught the day the bricks began holding each other up. You sat across a desk from a landlord who studied your account, your history, your thin thread of kept promises grown thick with use, and he did not see a blank page. He saw someone worth renting to. You put the pen to the line and your hand stayed steady. Stand in the empty room a moment before the furniture arrives, because the emptiness means the opposite of what it meant. On the first day, an empty room and one bag pressed on your chest like a verdict. You have nothing, you are no one, the clock is running. This emptiness is a room waiting to be filled by someone with the standing to fill it. Same bare floor, same flat light through a window, and you notice the light doesn't read as wrong anymore. It's just light. It stopped being foreign somewhere along the way, in a bank line over a coffee that costs too much, across 100 small kept words. You think of the $300 because you will always think of the $300. It's still the unit you measure a life in, the whole country you arrived carrying, folded against your chest. You know now what you couldn't have known then, that it was never a stash and never nearly enough, that it was a match, and that the only question that ever mattered was what you chose to set alight before it burned down to your fingers. You could have fed it to the plexiglass window a slice a week. You could have handed it through the fast door with a friendly sign and watched it come back wearing 300%. Instead, you spent it on the first foothold and built everything after out of your own name. The 300 is long gone. What it bought is you, standing in an empty room that answers to you, and you think of the two men. Your guide who showed you the low step in the dark and asked for nothing but that you show it to the next one, which you've already started doing, passing names sideways the way names were passed to you, one more link in a chain older than either of you. And the alone man, still turning in his small circle, still on the first step, still calling it freedom. You know the difference between you now, and it isn't luck, and it isn't even the money. He guarded a door and named it independence. You let people through yours and let them pull you through theirs, and the door that swings both ways is the only kind that ever leads anywhere. He's free the way a man alone on an island is free. You're free the way a man is free who has roots tied to a place, to people, to a name kept clean, and who discovers the ties don't weigh him down. They hold him up. That's the thing nobody tells you when you land with nothing in your hands. You think freedom means no strings? You spend the whole first year certain the immigrant's freedom is the freedom to vanish, to owe no one, to travel light. And it's exactly backward. The freedom worth having is the freedom of the rooted, the man who can sign his own lease, seal his own leak, price a predatory loan and laugh at it, pay his own way in the language of the place, and be vouched for by name. You didn't survive here. Survival was the plane and the plexiglass and the clock. You built a life here, one invisible brick at a time, and the whole story lives in the distance between those two words. So let me ask you the honest question this was always walking toward. If it were you, landed tomorrow somewhere you couldn't read the signs, $300 folded against your chest, a clock you couldn't yet hear, what would you build first? Not what would you buy, what would you build? The sealed leak, the first thread of history, or the one person who shows you where the step is? Sit with it because most people never have to answer it, and the ones who do find out very fast what they're actually made of. If this landed somewhere real in you, if you came this way once or you know someone who did, stay close. There's more of this here, and I'd rather tell it to people who understand exactly what a folded 300 weighs. The furniture comes later. For now, you just stand there in your own light and you do the smallest thing, the thing that was flatly impossible on the first day, the thing no amount of money could have bought you when you had no name and no history and no floor beneath your feet. You lock your own door behind you, walk out into the country that finally holds your name, and you go pay a bill at a window in the new language, your hands not shaking at all.